Welcome to Identity Unboxed, where we provide mentorship and promote representation for Black professionals in the advancement of the Black community.
We are seeking guidance from exceptional Black leaders, scholars, and professionals with expertise in their respective fields.
We hope to foster a space that promotes authenticity, inclusivity, and restoration for our listeners while exploring the intersection of our personal and professional lives.
This project is a culmination of our lived experiences as young Black professionals to transform our life trajectories to overcome adversity and reach triumph.
Our intention is to inspire you on your path to discovering your purpose. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final episode of Season 2 of Identity Unboxed. And Brad and I are so excited to welcome Kamal Carter and Kyle Williams with us today. This is a special episode where we will be discussing activating anti-racism and your work with a long talk and anti-racism activation experience that engages individuals about the history of racism in the U.S. and the impact it continues to have on our society today. First off, I'm just so grateful that our paths crossed at the UW and you both were able to come in and speak to the entire UW community and bring everyone into a very important and crucial conversation about advancing racial and social justice, but also understanding the uncomfortable truth about the history in the U.S. But to begin, I would just love to hear more about your journey of founding A Long Talk, how you both came together. I know you have known each other for a very long time. I believe you met in college, so I'm excited to hear about that. But my first question for you is, can you take us back to the moment you two met and how your journey unfolded to the founding of A Long Talk?
I'll start off. It's interesting how we met at Hampton University. I was a freshman, Kyle was upperclassman, and I was socially awkward, didn't have a lot of friends. I was trying to adapt, and Kyle kind of was like, hey, come sit with us in the cafeteria and kind of like stop going to the library so much. I'm like, bro, you should go to the library at least once a week. And we kind of built a friendship. Like it started from there. I mean, that's many, many, many years ago. And so there's some people who you meet in college who become friends for life and they become family. And I mean, when I got married, I had daughters, Kyle had sons, he got married. We celebrated moments together. And so that's kind of the beginning of us meeting. And then I'll kind of let Kyle talk about whatever he wants to share, but kind of this wasn't planned. I mean, you're talking 20 plus years. I don't even know how many years ago. We're just living our lives, right? And so Kyle, I'll toss it to you. Yeah.
Yeah, as Kamal said, Kamal and I have actually done a lot of things together, as friends, but also even business. We coming out of college, we're trying to make it and do different things. So we were building our families and real estate and all kinds of different stuff, technology companies, all kinds of things we did. But that was, as we kind of grew up and had our families, like I said, Kamal had daughters, I had sons, we've always stayed in touch. If I'm coming through Atlanta, I would always go see Kamal. We would always just kind of kick it and catch up. And then when I had this first conversation with BJ Dunn, because a long talk starts with me and BJ Dunn having a conversation like this, everything traces back to an event between my son and one of his teammates. And I couldn't just sit by and not do anything about it. I felt the need to provide some space for my son Elijah to get some not just closure, but to have someone make sure he was being heard. And he had an issue with his teammate, his captain on his team, and that didn't go very well when they kind of got into it. And instead of just sitting by and feeling like, well, maybe I should just take care of my son and make sure he's okay, I decided, nah, it's time for the world to make sure my son is okay. And so I reached out to the coach, to the man who was kind of in control of all this, because these are two college teammates. And when you deal with college athletes, first and foremost, they're away from their families, they're away from their parents. So their first and foremost parent on that campus is their coach. And so when these two kids had an issue, I reached out to the coach, a white man by the name of BJ Dunn, 35 years old, really good guy. And I just wanted to know where he stood on this, because we had a problem, and I knew that we had come to a point in 2020 where we were tired of just letting this stuff slide or not people not listening. And really for me, I just got tired of trying to figure out who was really listening. And so when I had this incident with my son, I reached out to the coach And Coach Dunn and I had a real conversation, a long, a 10-minute talk, but long, it felt much longer, but a 10-minute talk that was very, very uncomfortable. And I challenged him to do something that, if I'm being 100% honest, I let him know something was going to be done. And whether it was done by my son or whether it was done by him as the leader, something was going to be done to deal with this situation. And it wasn't just going to be okay to slide by. We weren't going to just talk about it and be like, no, something needed to happen. And when I talked to that coach, it was a very, very honest conversation about my expectations of him as the leader around my child. You know, I trusted him to take care of my son at school, and I needed him to respond. What I needed him to do was make a decision. Because if he wasn't going to respond, that was fine with me. I just wanted him to say that part out loud. And when I challenged him to do something, he admitted that he really didn't know what to do. But once he connected with the cause and realized that there was something he had to do, he just got to work. And so that's really the idea for a long talk came from the fact I've been having these conversations my whole life with people. And finally, this man decided, well, I'm going to take this information. I'm going to learn some stuff. I'm going to open my mind, and I'm going to apply whatever I can apply to do something. And when I saw this one person react differently in a time where everybody else had told us that this is going to be different this time, I just decided to push through. And by doing that, I decided that I know for me, if I'm going to execute something on something this large of a scale, because the idea originally was a couple coaches. And then we just got this idea, well, why don't we tell every coach in America and see what they do? And when I realized that was a scale that I was trying to take this to, the one person who I knew that was down with the information, down with the cause, had the ability and the skills and the work ethic to get it done, I reached out to Kamal. And I was like, yo, this is something we can do. This is the time that we're built for. All the things we've talked about, your daughters, my sons, the rest of these kids in this generation, we can come together and make a change. And so a long talk was birthed from a conversation, and it was built into a mission and an organization and a movement when Kamal and I got together and started to plan and figure out how do we move this forward across the country. So that's where it originated.
That's amazing.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say that's amazing. And I really like that you guys came together with that shared passion and that same desire from your lived experiences and also, you know, the conversations you had with your kids. And I was wondering if you could speak to, in general, the importance of having, you know, in like a business endeavor like this, a partner who is, you know, that can match you and match your energy and that drive and that passion. Because that's something that me and Tiana say is we kind of balance each other out, we level each other out, and it's really important. I feel like to have someone at, you know, your right side that can keep you on track. And so what's the importance of that, and how do you guys help keep each other on your toes?
That's actually the most important thing. When we started a long talk, you got to remember, this is COVID, this is everything going where people home. And when we started, it was actually 5 of us that met every single day on the phone call, at least 20, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour. 5 people that were super close to me, people that just getting this energy together. How do we start to make a plan for something so much bigger? And we just started talking. We probably went the first 60, 90 days. I don't even know. We just kept talking every single day. And out of those 5, these great ideas came out. But then the 2 of us kind of took this mission on, right? The team that we kind of built in the beginning, you know, everybody was doing other things, building, you know, have their full-time lives and families, and they added a lot of pieces to it. But as we came out of that and things started to turn around, we realized we could actually move this conversation to be able to have someone like Kamal, not just match, like you said, match the vision. Like we both saw it immediately. Right. But then Kamal has a skill set that I think is unique to probably anyone I've ever met in the world. Like I call him an alien sometimes because of some of the things that he brings to the table that I can't even imagine because of some of the places that he's been. And, you know, the relentless pursuit of excellence and success. He's always been someone that, even though he's like a little brother to me, he's always been someone I looked up to for the amount of success he's been able to manifest in this world. So I think as we kind of continued to push and the team kind of started to thin out a little bit, it really just kind of gave us the boost we needed to get started with the ideas. And then we just kind of took it from there. And then it's just been a matter of just talking and breaking through whatever door is open for us. I mean, we could tell you story after story of how we just wouldn't take no for an answer, how we did this stuff for free, how we did it on the weekends. You know, we were just talking about, we did it in a long talk on New Year's Day with the Michigan gymnastics team. who are national champions now. But that's how serious they were. That was how their schedule was built. That's the only day they had. And they had a player who was like, we're doing this. And the coach was like, we don't have time. And she was like, we have time on this day. And so on that holiday, we rolled up and were on Zoom with the Michigan gymnastics team. Was that 2021? Maybe 20? Yeah, it was like right in the beginning. So, we just had a mentality that people needed to have this conversation, even if they didn't know they needed to have it. And so it was just a matter of us just staying in people's face, reaching out, reminding people what they said on the first call, like, how do we go? And the next thing you know, we had a breakthrough here and a breakthrough there and a breakthrough there. And now we're all over the place. So,
yeah. Brad, I want to add to that too, but because when you talk about having a partner, someone that's going to work or match what you're doing, but also be able to calibrate and pull you back. And Kyle has been that. I mean, when he walks in a room, one of his many gifts, I mean, being a former principal, you have to be able to build a team and work inside a culture of, we have to problem solve, you have to motivate, you have to be a visionary when you're, especially in environments where they're under-resourced. So Kyle, he was, I mean, it's funny because he texted me when all this was starting. I was like, we got to do something. I'm tired of just watching. I remember how I felt when Mike Brown got murdered. I didn't do anything. I just kept serving and volunteering, but I never fought up here. Trayvon Martin, same thing. Like, it just kept going. I was like, I need to change up here, and I can keep working here. I can keep volunteering and giving my times. But he texts, times like this were built for men like us. You understand? So this shows you like the brotherhood that goes back 25 years and say, let's go. And that spirit and I mean, I know that there's a level of trust. There's a level of like, we're going to keep each other accountable. We're going to stay on mission because we couldn't mess this up. We could not drop this opportunity for change because there were generations yet born that we knew getting this right it's not a business. And so Kyle, watching him walk in the room and when he speaks and when he's on the Zoom calls and it's unapologetically Black. And it comes from a place of passion, no fear of expectation. This is the direction we're going in. This is the leadership. Are you following me? And he said this last week when we were at the school we were at. People are babies in this. It does not matter your title. You could be CEO, head coach, Hall of Famer, athletic director, whatever your title is. We're babies in this anti-racist. We have the lived experience. We're going to share it with you. And now we're going to charge you to do something. And it's amazing to watch. I mean, I've been in multiple presentations, but the way that he commands a room, the way that it's just a level of authenticity that 1% of human beings on this planet have. I'm sorry. I know we went way over on that question, but yeah.
No, don't be sorry. We love like the elaborate answers, and you just said so much there. And also, Kyle, you did as well. But what is really admirable about what you both do is you can feel the authenticity, like it's palpable. And I can tell that you are both so passionate about this, not only because it affects our community, but you actually want to help people learn. You bring people in, you bring in the allies, and it takes a lot of courage to be able to sit down with someone that potentially opposes your beliefs and invalidates your lived experience, and to allow them to sit there and listen to you and actually hopefully hear you. And that's what I believe is just so inspiring about you both. And I was hoping you'd be able to speak a little bit more to kind of the genesis of this whole movement that you both created. I think it's just very compelling to see like how fast this grew from literally you just having a small team, hopping on phone calls, like this being in your own backyards, to now going across the country to all these universities, nonprofits, corporations. And my question to you is, when did you like see this ramping up and you started to, begin to know this could actually become something? I know you said, Kamal, that you're a visionary, and Kyle, that you just felt like the time was now to begin this. But like, was there a moment where you're like, this could actually be something?
So the interesting thing was the plan was to do this one time. I think a lot of people, I think that's why it was so authentic, because I really didn't care if they invited me back to do it ever again. I was going to say what I had to say, right? So the plan was to literally do it one time. And when it was built that way and people responded to it and was like, can you do it again? And can you do it again? Actually, the original moment where I think we realized that there was a a market, if you will, because again, it wasn't built as a business. But when we finished, well, two things. When we did a practice call that before we had the big call with all the coaches, and I did that practice call. My background, I had been working as a facilitator for discovery education. So I've been going around the school, right around the country, training principals and teachers on how to use technology in the classroom. So when I was building this presentation, I needed to practice. I needed to make sure that I had some things. So I invited all of my fellow discovery education facilitators to go through it with me the first time and give me feedback, because school was closed, everybody was home. So so that first session, when I finished it, some of the facilitators that I worked with Discovery for years, they were so impressed with it and realized, talked about why it was needed and why it was for the time. And I'm again thinking, I'm gonna do this once. And then they started asking, well, when you get this up and running, I would love to help facilitate. And I was like, up and running. And then it hit me that maybe there's a bigger market. And then when we did the first call, it was originally 3 90-minute sessions. And so when the coaches from all over the country signed up, they signed up for 3 days. And after the first day, I got a phone call from one of the coaches, a Southeast Conference basketball coach. And he asked us if we had a PAC, a political action committee. And I was like, no. I was like, but it's not politics for us. We're just out here doing. And he's like, if you had a PAC, I would give you $25,000 right now. And I know 3 other coaches in the conference that would want to contribute to get this thing going. And when they said that, I was like, and I started thinking about being able to build an infrastructure. I was like, wait a minute, because it moved them. And it wasn't about just, a lot of people just didn't know what to do. And so people with money give money, right? That was just something they could do. But when I realized that it was moving people to do something, I was like, you know what? If this one call with a couple of weeks of planning move some folks to want to do something on that level, if we just keep doing this, we'll keep running into people like that. And then eventually we'll be able to find people that want to connect the dots. And that's what it turned into what it was. So really, it was always the response. I've been an educator for 25 years. I've been putting together lesson plans and multimedia presentations my whole life. So I know I can put together a presentation that can teach you something. What I wasn't going to do was try to teach people that didn't want to learn. So once I realized there was a market of people and a conversation that needed to happen in this country, and there was a thirst and a hunger for it, after that, we realized, okay, we just have to keep breaking through doors and not take no for an answer. So we just started pushing through in that direction. We first went to those 3 coaches that talked about raising money and giving us money and said, well, instead of that, introduce us to your athletic director. And literally, the first schools we worked with were LSU and Florida, University of Florida, because the 2 coaches that wanted to contribute up front were at those schools. And those were the first ones we tapped into. So it definitely was the response. We were already on 1,000. Let's go. And if they would have been like, oh, that sounds good, we'll talk about it later, we'd have been done. But they kept calling back, so we kept pushing through.
That's awesome. Can you speak to the importance of consistency? Because like you mentioned, you guys, once you saw that potential, you just kept going and said, once, I saw that people are moved by this, I realized, we can keep this going and it can have a bigger impact. And I know when you're chasing your dreams, it's so easy to give up if you don't see those instant results or, you feel like nobody's watching you. So can you give advice to folks who, might be feeling down bad, but, just encourage them to keep the faith and keep pursuing their dreams?
You got that.
I think, yeah, I was going to say one of the things about mission-driven work, and it could even be if you're starting a company, sometimes you have to, it's almost like, I don't want to say trick your mind or yourself, but I remember this quote: we're born to win, but we're programmed to fail. When you're a kid, you feel like I'm going to be an astronaut, I'm going to do it. And as life starts teaching, as you see commercials, you watch movies, you get older, you start internalizing these behaviors that are self-sabotaging, right? And so maybe you're like, okay, things have to happen within X, Y, and Z time, or I'm not making it, or imposter syndrome. Things happen really fast, and all of a sudden, no one's calling. I knew I didn't deserve this. And so that internal work is important. I learned something at a very young age: personal growth. I studied science, but I never studied human achievement. And part of that process of how do you feed your mind things that can help you get out of that self-doubt, like, oh, we're not going to make it, no one's going to schedule us, or no one's going to buy my product, or whatever it is, whatever those battles are. And that self-sabotage, that lack of personal growth, I believe is intentional, because the people who are financially independent, the small percentage of people in this country a lot of them understand they invest heavily in personal growth. So I think that's one of the key factors into getting past, into accelerating, into attacking self-doubt. That's one of the layers. And I was fortunate as a young Black man to have someone pour into me and give me the tools and the resources to find ways to combat those moments where I might just stop. I might just give up. And so that's one thing. But another thing is this mission stuff. We're on a mission. You just keep going. You just keep going because you're like, if it's, when you have your why, when you really find your why, the how, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't. Like, how are we going to get it? What if no one calls us for a year? We're going to keep going. I literally, as a high school teacher in chemistry in an under-resourced school for 10 years, grinded, not getting paid, after school, helping kids who don't have counselors for college. For 10 years, I saw a need and I didn't care. No one donated to us. No one tried to help us, but I knew that my kids would die if they didn't get out their environments, or if they undermatched. They wouldn't be able to go become that scientist or be the first one in their family to go to college. So for me, that shows you my mission. Before a long talking, I still continue this work to this day. Never asked them. I just kept going year after year because I knew that if I did, my people were going to be gone, but they'll be struggling. And so, Kyle, I don't know if you have.
I think that's been the measure of our success. I think consistency, you have to understand that the further we get away from 2020, the further we've gotten away from that moment in American history where everybody wanted to do something. The candle has flickered in a lot of places. Like the lights have gone down in a lot of places. And we could have, I think there's a natural reaction for things to die off, right? Especially when it comes to social justice and this work, that the greatest gift of the op in this, the enemy to this progress, is that we'll just kind of become complacent and go back to normal. And we just decided to be consistent from the beginning that we're going to wake up every day and just push to see if we can just make connections and connect the dots. And I think that was, as kind of, I was thinking about it when you said Kamal. Kamal is Kamal has read all those books and the self-help. He's done incredible things. Like literally, we could do a whole podcast on. For me, consistency was about creating a different mental note, right? So, for instance, one of the things that I challenged our team to do at 5 when we first started was for 30 days straight to make sure they listen to Black Thoughts Freestyle, that 10-minute freestyle at least once a day. Just to get in the habit of putting something in your brain that's going to make you feel empowered to move and go. Because I don't know, everyone was going to read the book, this book, but can we do something consistent to keep us moving forward? And once we got that train going, because, we didn't always get, we didn't always get the answer yes. In the beginning, we got more no's than anything. People that, and I'm going to tell you where it was in terms of the consistency around this stuff. We would talk to somebody, they would get excited. And they were like, we're going to do this. We're going to bring it to our school. And then they would go talk to their supervisor. And the supervisor wasn't as excited. And they would push back on the person because they had to get approval to go do this stuff. So because there wasn't that push, they might falter, they might fall off, they might think, they might become discouraged. And some people stopped working with us because they didn't want to fight through the no's above them, right? So we just started working with the people that were willing to just push through. And whether it's going to be on New Year's Day or whether it's going to be on middle of the, whatever, it was going to happen because we had to just find the people. We use the kind of analogy that we're like water, right? Water is one of the most consistent forces in the world. It's going to just keep on flowing. And when it hits something that stops it, it's going to find a way to go around it. Like, that's just the power of water. That's why it shows up in places it's not supposed to be in. Whether it's in, the foundation of your house or whatever, like, it's going to keep pushing through. And that's how we decided to do. When we would get a no, we'd be like, all right, we got to go talk to somebody else over here. And we would still get to the same place because I'm trying to get into your school. But if I got to go through this crack or this crack, we're going to get there. So that consistent pressure that we put on people, the consistent reminder that people have to make a change. And then that consistent follow up. I mean, we've had to build this. People now are calling us and wanting business. In the beginning, the first 2 years, we were pushing, showing up wherever. So you have to definitely commit and believe that your vision is possible, because there were some times that we thought maybe this isn't, maybe it's just going to be something small. And this wasn't meant to be small. It wasn't meant to be another website where somebody could sign up and go to a little training. That's not what this was meant to be. We could have easily done that. We could still do that. If we really wanted to, we could turn this into a straight business and work with people and pay our bills and have a good career. But that's not what this is about, right? And we would have failed if we just made a business for ourselves instead of a movement for your generation.
Wow, that everything you said was so valuable. We both touched on so much. But yeah, just centering back to what the purpose is, and that sounds like what you've both done. I think that's contributed significantly to your success, because this was more than just a business. You simply could have just gone into this to, get something to pay your bills, or, just start something up that was temporary, but you both have that like long-term vision. And I think that's contributed to the momentum. So it's really great to hear. And moving forward a little bit, I know you both have a background in education. And Kamal, you were a chemistry teacher, as you mentioned. And Kyle, I know you have been an educator for over 2 decades. So I would really love to hear both of your perspective on just our K through 12 public education system and how that ties into what you're both doing at Along Talk. And according to the National Council for the Social Studies, in a 2015 study conducted by the National Museum of African American History with over 500 K through 12 public schools, the results discovered that generally only 1 to 2 lessons, or 8 to 9% of total class time, is devoted to Black history in U.S. history classrooms. Can you both share your experience of when you first began to uncover our shared history and how this influenced your career decisions? Wow. It's a big question.
You want me to start on that? Come on. So it's actually that's so deep, because it goes. I think I read The Fire Next Time when I was 12 years old. I had an uncle that gave me that book. I read it. I didn't really understand everything. I guess I kind of understood it. I didn't understand the power of James Baldwin and what he was really saying, and I didn't understand all the examples, but I understood what it was, a call to action, right? And I understood that we didn't learn about stuff in my schools that called us to do something. Like, we just were learning stuff that we wanted to regurgitate on a test, right? And so when you think about even when you say only 1 or 2 things, or 1 or 2 lessons are about Black history, we don't teach Black history in Along Talk. Like, if anything, we teach white history, if you really want to break it down. But we teach a shared American history, right? And I think the idea that there has to be a separate storyline has always bothered me. That we can't just tell the truth about our history and talk about it, that we have to create history that's comfortable to white people to hear. Then we have to create history that's going to be empowering and inspiring for Black people to hear. And we got to go find some other people's history instead of talking about this history of America, right? Because when we're talking about all these things, it wasn't like it happened in a vacuum. Like every story that's in Black, that you learn about in Black History Month, happened because of the consequences and the circumstances of white history in America. You wouldn't, Jackie Robinson and I had to be the first black baseball player if we could have started playing when we first started playing baseball, right? So there's no separation. So for me, it's always been about trying to bring people back to the truth, right? I don't want to learn Black history, right? I want to learn the truth. And then let's talk about what that means and how we learn from that truth. So for me, I think it's always been about how do we get the truth out there. I'll tell you, when I was a principal in DC at a charter school, we had Christopher Columbus Day on the calendar. And I believe probably my first year as a principal, and it was at a charter school, so I didn't really have to ask for permission up against the board. I just renamed it Native American Exploitation Day. And I gave every teacher, we had a staff meeting about it, and the teacher was like, what? I said, yes, we're going to teach the children that today is called Native American Exploitation. I had an assembly and everything. And I had a t-shirt. I had a t-shirt that we made because I wanted to just, and I just did it. I just instigated. I'm just agitating. I want people to really dive into history. So I got some pushback, from my charter board and all that stuff, but I was like, yo, this is what it is to us. And all it was about, there's enough standards in life. It was about critical thinking, about different perspectives. I made it a standard, right? But we just looked at this day from different. So for me, I guess I've always been a little bit of a troublemaker when it comes to history, because I think people are missing the boat. And I think they're focusing on the wrong thing. So, to that question, I think even embedded in that question, or even embedded in those stats, in that research, there's a disconnect that we don't need to have. That we need to look at this, and people say whether we're a melting pot. I kind of see America like a garden salad, like a melting pot. Everybody comes together and we turn into one mush. garden salads each have their own individual expertise, their own texture, their own flavor. So who's the tomato, who's the green pepper, and we just mix them up and then enjoy, right? So this idea that we have this country with all these different ingredients, that we try to separate them and say, this is for this history and this is for this people. No. Put everybody in a bowl, mix it up, and let's go have a great meal, right? That's what I look at.
Bro, I'm not gonna try and follow that up. Salad. That was clever, but I am gonna use it when I'm not speaking with you. I'm for sure act like I made that up. No, just kidding. But yeah, it's interesting because so I guess the way that my mom raised me and my dad raised me, it was just like we were born into the struggle. Like I used to live in Tuskegee, Alabama. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Like history, and like Kyle said, the world calls it Black history, but we call it our shared American history. It's all around us. For me, my grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman. My mother would organize and go to the library, go to registration. I mean, we were in Tuskegee ground zero. Like kids and grandkids whose parents were in the Tuskegee experiment, injected with syphilis, not treated. Then like these are my neighbors. So for me, my mother had to give me this full American history so I could be protected. I do air quotes with the Black history. Like I had to know, like Kyle said, Baldwin. I knew that when I was in elementary school. Tulsa, all this stuff. She gave me the armor because she knew I was in Alabama. And once we left Tuskegee, we were in Alabama. Like, right. So I just kind of grew up with this pride, loving my people, feeling like we're not less than, knowing that slavery didn't start. I mean, our history didn't start at slavery. When people were enslaved, knowing that we were kings, queens, doctors, pharmacists, so I had this pride, and that was infused in me from just my DNA. I don't even remember. I remember the art on when I was a little kid on the walls and the books that my parents read. I remember, Gil Scott Heron as a kid. The Tuskegee 626. My dad used to love it, play his guitar, and I didn't know what it meant, but this was being downloaded into my being, to my DNA. So yeah, Kyle answered everything else. I'll leave it there. Yeah.
No, I love
Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, you guys.
So many thoughts.
Right. Yeah, I love what you touched on, Kyle, too, about, just throwing it all together, because that's one thing that people don't realize is it's almost like when we're in school, and especially in the K through 12 system, we learn about white history and, even a lot of European history. We learn about the French Revolution and all these things. But when it comes to Black history, when it comes to African history, it's crickets. And I remember in high school, I asked my high school principal, why don't we teach more Black history? And he said, oh, we don't have the funding. And I think that's the problem, is it's just viewed as like, okay, this is American history, and yeah, these bad things happened to the Black people, but Martin Luther King came, and, then we kind of changed our minds. So, and that's typically how it goes. And I love also what you mentioned about Christopher Columbus, because it reminded me of a social studies teacher that I had in 8th grade. And, we went to a predominantly white school, but she was like, it's Christopher Columbus Day. I'm going to actually teach you guys about what he did. And I'm going to let you guys decide if you guys think this should be something that we celebrate every year. And so I love that, folks like you are trying to change that narrative and actually teach the real history that needs to be taught instead of the watered down, whitewashed version of history.
Love it.
Yeah. Brad, I think you put it perfectly. And just how in our K through 12 education system, that a lot of times history is, delivered to our students to be palatable for white people and to make them feel comfortable. And I think what's different about what you and Kamal and Kyle, what you both do, is that you talk about the uncomfortable truth, which is in the name of, what a long talk is, because it is uncomfortable for people that have never confronted, how their own identity has perpetuated harm and inflicted so much, violence on these marginalized groups, but they do have a role and responsibility to redress these harms. And so I'm appreciative that you both go out and do this work, because it is very daunting. And I would love to hear a little bit more about how you came to your careers in education. I know you spoke to it a little bit because it was a part of your upbringing and you were always taught about Black history. That's something that I was actually not really introduced to until like my senior year of high school, when I, really got close with Brad. I was raised in a predominantly white town, as we mentioned, Olympia, by my white family. And so I did not have like much exposure to Black history at all, and had just an identity crisis and like in college, and I really started to dive into it. And that's really what led me to journalism and like creating this space to bring you both together. But I did take risks in pursuing, this career and doing something that maybe is not as lucrative starting out. And Kamal, I also just wanted to ask you, I know in your, background that you had an opportunity to attend med school. You had 2 full ride scholarships and you turned them down to go work in an underserved school in Atlanta, as you mentioned. And can you speak a little bit more about that decision? I'm sure that was like very difficult and probably from where you're coming from. I know you said you grew up in Alabama, and didn't have like a lot of resources, but can you speak to that? Like, were you kind of questioning, like, did I make the right decision when you were struggling for those 10 years?
Yeah, I'll say I didn't. Okay, for me, it was interesting because my pursuit for medicine was, I came to this epiphany where when we are in the hospital at our most vulnerable point, we need someone to love on us and care on us and not just treat us like a number, whatever. And so that was my drive. That gave me the focus. It was always about the people for me. So I was going into medicine for the people. I wanted to be that doctor that could help them and give them, the best care while they were in their most vulnerable, painful, whatever moment it was. And the family too, I wanted to treat them with dignity and respect because I saw so much disrespect in healthcare. So that was my driving force. So it let me, no matter what happened in my life, I could focus and I could get into school. I could do what I needed to do. But once I got my acceptance letters, I thought I was going to feel this like joy, because it's hard. That you don't just do that in college. You have to start in elementary school and high school. You have to dedicate yourself to excellence in education. Like there's no margin for error to achieve in medicine, even get into medical school. So I started a long time ago, but when I finally had a chance my senior year just to breathe, when I got my first letter and my first full scholarship, I looked at it and I was happy, but I thought this joy, I was going to feel this thing in my heart. It wasn't there. Then I got my second letter and second scholarship and it wasn't there. And I'm like, wow, let me just pause for a second because I've been working for this really almost all my life. And I thought now I'm ready to go. I'll take this next step and I'll serve my people. And I just said I need to reevaluate. And so I took some time off and I asked them, can you hold my seat for a year in my scholarship? Sure, no problem. And then I started reading outside business, leaders. And I'm like, wait a minute. My people are hurting too financially. Before we even get to the hospital, many of us are just struggling. A lot of that is stress related. We're trying to survive, and so what if we could do something from a business perspective? And so that was my first thing, was applying the lens of medicine and serving and helping my community to applying that to business. All I did was take formulas from chemistry and biology, practices and labs. And I said, what if I took the formulas from business and boom. And so that was the first part, was this, okay, reshifted my mind from science to business. Then I said, you know what? There's always been a service component. My mom was a kindergarten teacher outside of an activist. And so I was like, I got to serve. I've always volunteered after school. And then it just kept drawing me closer and closer. And I was like, you know what? I need to be I need to inspire people who look like me and just let them know there's another way. And so that's kind of like how I got drawn into education, I would say. It was more, I looked at business first, had some success there, but I was like, you know what? It's all about service. I need to serve. And I was like, what about these young minds? If we could build something special where people discount us and throw us away, and there's greatness. It doesn't matter your zip code, doesn't matter your latitude, your longitude, let's go. And so that was the spirit. I mean, I remember going to the classroom, we would play chess. We would have a quote of the day. The kids would come up and try and challenge, hey, Mr. Carter, I got a quote. And we were just like, it was this, I don't know, we create this culture of, once a month we would dress up and just create this mind shift. And so, it's the classroom has been it's been a priceless gift. For me, what the kids have given me, for sure. I've given and shared, but it was a great journey. I never felt like I regret my decision. I was so happy, honestly. I remember my advisors, people were so mad, you're wasting your life. I was the president of the pre-med club. I helped like 50, 60 people get into I figured out the algorithm on how to get into medical school. And so they were like, you're wasting your life. You're doing this and you need to get therapy and counseling. I'm living my best life. I'm so happy. I'm so liberated because I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So, yeah.
I love that. It's so easy for people to stay on a single path because, they listen to those outside voices or people, doubting them or, projecting their own, ways of life or their own, self-beliefs onto you because you're deciding to chase your dreams. And so I think it's really cool that you decided to, venture out. And even though, you went through all that schooling and you helped so many people get into med school, you said, I can apply, some of this knowledge in a different way to help the community in a way that, I can do that best applies to me and what I love. So kudos to you.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot, Kamal. I actually started out pre-med as well. I jumped out way sooner than you did my freshman year. I was like, I'm not sticking with this. But, people outside were telling me, like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you going into journalism? You're not going to make any money. And then I was just like, you know what? I'm not listening to them. So I just love hearing that you knew what you wanted to do deep down and you wanted to address the root cause of systemic oppression. And so that's what you're able to do, with the work that you are doing in education. So it's just really great to hear that. And Kyle, I would love to hear more too about you when it came to education. Did you always think that you were going to go down that path, or were you like, I want to go, make money, I can get into consulting or get into something else, because teachers, they don't make a lot of money usually. So oh, you're muted. No worries.
Yeah, no, I ran from education. I'm third generation educator. I watched my grandparents, teachers, and vice pres and principals. My parents, both my parents worked at my high school. So clearly I was like, I don't want to be anywhere around this stuff. Honestly, I actually was going into business. I actually wanted to be on Wall Street, being a stockbroker and chasing the money and trying to get paid and all that stuff. And that quickly went away. Then I became, my undergrad degree is in psychology. So I love sports. So I wanted to be a sports psychology and work on maximizing performance and that kind of stuff. And then, I got married and things got real. I had a job that was, it wasn't consistent. I'll say I was managing a restaurant, nightclub in Baltimore when I first got married. And while I think there was a potential for some money there, I didn't feel good about the work I was doing. It was just a lot of stuff was going on. And then actually one of the waitresses at the restaurant came to work late one day, and I'm kind of going off telling her, she just kind of looked at me, smiling, and was like, I'm not going to be here much longer. I found this great school that I'm getting ready to start working at. And I could just, her energy and her aura came off. And I realized what she had was what I was looking for. Similar to what Kamal was saying. My first son was on the way. I just I didn't really like what I was doing. I didn't feel good about it, I should say. And then when I got that vibe from her, I literally went to a school to the school she told me about. I went there to volunteer.
Listen, tell the whole story too, bro. This is powerful. Oh, I love this. I forgot about
this. So, all right, the whole story is that I was managing this restaurant in Baltimore, right by the harbor, and we had
not that whole story. The education, jump straight to the education, bro. Okay. Like the volunteer, I need that part. Like, don't leave anything out. Like, we went there to volunteer. Don't edit it. I know you aren't.
All right. So when I go, I literally was like, you know what? I got to get something else from my hard work. Like this money I can make over here, but I just like, let me go volunteer at this school. I just want to meet these people that moved this woman to look at me and say, I don't care what you're saying to me. Right. So I walk in, I meet with the principal. It's a charter school that's just opening up. It's brand new. It's called Community Academy Public Charter School. And I walk in to meet the principal, and they're literally, it's like August, school starts in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, well, I just want to volunteer. Can I be a reader? I want to read to kids, something. And as I talked to her, she kind of asked me what I was doing. And when we finished the conversation, she was like, I think you're actually my second grade teacher. And I was like, nah, you're not listening. Like, I'm not. That's not what I'm trying to do. She's like, no, I need a second grade teacher. I need a man who understands. And she just was like, the teaching part is just, I need you in my school. I need you to be a part of what we're doing. And I was kind of like, I really can't do that. I got a baby on the way. I know you're not going to pay me money. So she finally says, all right. So she sends me she gives me a number. I was like, well, what are we talking about in salary? She gives me a number. I looked at it. I was like, no, I slid it right. There's no way. My wife will kill me. I come home saying I'm going to do this instead of what I was doing. Like, it's not going to work. So I slid it back to her, and I was like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't do it. She said, I'm going to give you as much as I really want you to be here. So I'm going to offer you as much as I absolutely can. I really want you to be. I want you to take this in good faith. She slides the paper back to me. There's like $1,500 more on there. And I'm like, I can't do this. So she just, I just want you to think about it. So I go home, I talk to my wife, and we're sitting there. She prays about it, and literally she's like, this is what you're supposed to do. And I felt like I could do my heart wanted to, but I was like, we got a baby on the way. We're living in Columbia, Maryland. We're not gonna be able to afford this. She was like, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna do it. So I went, called the woman back, and my only caveat was I only want to teach math. So I don't want to teach second grade everything. So I became the moving second grade math and science teacher. I went to every class and taught math and science. And what it did is it put me in a place though where I was able to be free to do the things that I think were inside of me. When I was running the business in the restaurant, it was about bottom lines and people's. I couldn't value people. It was all about making money. And when I got to the school, what I loved about it first and foremost is as a teacher, the first thing they said was, we don't have any books. We don't have a curriculum built. Here are the standards. I need you to decide and show us how you're going to teach these children. And that just allowed me to create. So every day was a hip hop lesson. We started learning math through rhythm and everything. I was able to bring myself into the classroom, and I fell in love with it. And in that school, because it was a charter school, it allowed me to keep doing that, where eventually I became the principal there, and then allowed all the teachers to bring hip hop into the classroom and do it all the way I had to do. So for me, it was definitely a shift. I realized that my career didn't have to be about my paycheck, that my career had to be about me empowering myself and I could do all the things I ever wanted to do in the school, and I had to take a pay cut to do it. But eventually it all came back because I became a principal, and that's a whole nother pay salary, right? So that taught me that I could actually chase what I will, not even chase, that I could find, if I put myself where I'm supposed to be, the right things are going to happen. But if I try to fit myself into something that people think I'm supposed to be doing, or whether it's going to pay a certain bill, I'm never going to be the person that I'm supposed to be. And so that has been the attitude I've carried for as long as literally up to this point right here. That's the reason why when I go in and I talk to Deutsche Bank or talk to Wharton Business School about anti-racist in America, I wear Jordan 1s, I wear a hoodie, I wear a t-shirt with James Baldwin on it, I wear whatever, because I'm just going to bring my authentic self in. And I found that that's actually the best place for me ever to be in my life. So is that the full story? Come on.
That's the full story. Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. And tell them about the teachers in the hallway who are facilitators who you met at the school.
So that original 5 that we met, those are my people from the school. Because the idea was, and also a friend from way back from home but I don't like working with strangers. So the point was, I'm a little paranoid because I feel like we got this important work to do. We can't just let everybody in the room. So the people still work with us today. I have the first really friends that I met in DC were these teachers who were the same age as me, the same energy. They had come with the same ideas. We walked around the school telling the kids, Black man is God, let's go. Like we were like, let's go, right? And then we were on the same energy. And so for that connection, when it transformed into this work it was easy. I like, I got something for us. And now we just made better lesson plans around this information. So yeah, that definitely gave me a foundation for my friendships and my work in the district, because I was new to the area. I had just moved down here in '98 from New Jersey. So those are my first people that I was able to connect with, and I've had lifelong connections since.
I love that so much. And I feel like the epitome of that story, you're worried about the money and if you're going to be able to make ends meet. And it's so important to, chase your dreams because the money will follow. And that's something that I'm sure we all struggle with, is like, oh my gosh, if I do this, or if I pursue this goal or this dream, or if I take this job that I know I'll really like, I'll be more happy. And, will it impact my income? Will I be able to get by? And that's just kind of, I believe the universe brings you opportunities that sometimes you have to take. And that's the scary thing, is sometimes you don't really know if it'll work out, or, it might, make you feel a little less stable. But if you really put your trust and faith in that, I believe that, it will happen. And I really also love that you emphasize the importance of maintaining your authentic self, the way you're able to teach in a style that was, true to you and true to the culture and the community. And you were also in a workspace that allowed you to do that. I think that's one of the goals of our podcast, was to really encourage and inspire people to not be afraid to show up as their authentic selves in the workplace. Because if you're able to do that and you're able to truly be yourself, it benefits everybody, and other people will feel like they can be themselves, and it'll create a happier environment overall, at school and the professional environment. And so that's really dope.
Yeah. Thank you, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And just like a common through line, like Brad said, that we've gotten from pretty much every single guest, is that when it came to worrying about money, they kind of just put that aside and were like, this is going to work. Even if people on the outside were telling them, you're delusional. I don't know why you're going after this goal. Like, you should just stop and work the 9 to 5 job. Like, you're trying to do something that's not possible. Like, they just had that, drive within them and that spark that would never go out. So it's just so cool to see that you were able to continue that. And, you've had those opportunities come to you. And that's, I think, partly the reason that you've been able to both be so successful is because you have been authentic. But, when you continue to put good out into the world, you receive good. So it's just really great to see that.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
That's a good segue into our next question. As much as I love you, Dub, I've always said if I can go back and change one thing in my first 23 years of life, I would have went to an HBCU. And you both attended the Hampton University, an HBCU founded over 150 years ago. How did your time there shape your identity and your relationship to your Blackness?
It was, I'll start out. For me, it was just a continuation because I was brought up in this Black environment. Like, I mean, lived Tuskegee, Alabama, then Atlanta, Georgia. Like, I'm around Black people. I grew up in Blackness, right? And then so going there, it was just like 24 hours of Black. It was, but you saw these. I think I learned some more information, but it was just meeting people from all over the country with these similar experiences. It was our motto at Hampton is friends for life. When I got married, outside of my brother, everyone else who stood beside me on the altar, I met at Hampton. Like my best man and my groomsmen, like it's just the friends for life, but the stuff you get outside the classroom, even me meeting Kyle, like, look at this, us being able to build a friendship that goes back 20 plus years. Like that's some of the stuff, that the artwork that we saw there, the music, the different people from different parts of the country bringing their music and their culture, the fashion. This is stuff that's non-curriculum related. But I remember when I was studying, and we had a 24-hour study room with a library. There's a mural by Dr. John Biggers. He's painted these famous murals, famous artists. And I remember it was a 24-hour study room, and I was so tired after that. And just like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, sometimes I would walk behind the library. There's a statue of Booker T. Washington pointing. Booker T. Washington is an alumnus from Hampton University. He founded Tuskegee University. But I would sit under that statue and just, I would say, you know what? I would just almost like, I don't know, it was like calling on the ancestors, but just saying, look, what he went through and his adversity, I'm tired because I'm studying for organic chemistry tests. Are you kidding me? And I would just sit there and I would read those quotes. And that's something that I would internalize. And that's just something you wouldn't get, I don't think, on any other campus, just the respect that they and the homage that they pay to those before. So Kyle, I'll toss it to you, but I can go on and on about my Hampton experience and people I met and how it impacted me. But yeah, I'll toss it.
So I'm third generation HBCU. I grew up, my grandmother went to Hampton University. My father went to Hampton University. My sister went to Hampton University. I remember, going when I was little, but I remember my sister's graduation, homecoming, and then her senior year season of homecoming and then graduation. And I remember I was like 10 years old, and I went down for homecoming, and I had never, first of all, she let me hang with them. So I'm hanging out at the parties. I'm like the little kid in the party. But I had never seen so many powerful, happy, energized Black people. Like, I mean, and I lived in Plainfield, New Jersey, was predominantly Black and brown, but there was a different energy, a different vibe about pulling forward to the future. Like, I just lived in the present in Plainfield, like me and my friends. But that was about these people that were like, yeah, go change the world, right? So I always knew I was going to go to HBCU. I always knew I was going to Hampton University. Like, it wasn't even like growing up, I knew that's where I was going to school. I told my friends when I came back from homecoming, like when I was 11, like, I'm going to this school. You should have seen what was happening there. So for me, when I finally arrived as a student, I was on full blast. Like, I was about to just like, I was going to get everything out of it. As Kamal said, I probably should have got more out of the classrooms because I just took the whole other experience. And while here's the thing, I went to Hampton on an academic scholarship. Like, I stayed was Pierce Hall. I stayed in the honors dorm my freshman year because I grew up with educators. I'm going to be a good student. When I got to Hampton, it was so much more than the books that I did enough to keep my scholarship in the books. Like, literally you had to keep a 3.0 to keep your scholarship. I had a 2.8 the first semester. I had a 3.2 the second semester. Like literally, we're gonna get to this 3.0, right? So for me, it was everything else. And the what I also learned at Hampton University though was everything Kamal said. You learn about things you didn't, things you knew, but it just puts it in perspective and just solidifies it. And then you're surrounded by all these other people that are on these, the same journey, the same mission. Then I also learned about how you can also just get caught up in stuff. Meaning you can just get caught up in the environment, in the vibe. And because for me, I had to transfer out of Hampton after my sophomore year. I graduated from Old Dominion. So and for me, that was my first time ever around white people in my life. But because my first 2 years, because I was upset at myself a little bit that I didn't do what I needed to do to stay at Hampton, when I went to ODU, I was on a mission. So that was actually my first propulsion into competing 100% hard in the white world, if you will. Because like I said, I graduated 7th in my class in high school. There was only about 7 white people in the whole school, right? So my whole life, I had just been being the best of the best in the space that I was in. And when I went to ODU, because I was, out of my element a little bit, I worked even harder over there because of the things that I had learned at Hampton and things growing up is that we're not going to just be like, oh man, it's messed up. No, so I graduated summa cum laude from Old Dominion, right? One, you get to start your when you transfer, you start your GPA all over. So I was like, all right, now I'm gonna take these last 2.5 years and go literally 3.7 and let's go get it. So for me, I think my college experience I think I needed both of those experiences, right? I needed to be comfortable and then get knocked off my horse a little bit and then have to go recoup, recover. But it gave me such a sense of pride when I went over to ODU because I literally was going over there. I was writing poetry, pro-revolutionary black poetry on the campus. Kamal was like, you can't ever share some of that stuff on a talk. We might lose all the business we had because I was in a whole different place with my anger. I was just a young militant black man. So when I went over there, it made me really focus on not just the hype and not just the feeling and the vibes, but you got to get to work. Right. And so I think that for me changed my mentality that if you're really going to compete, if you're really going to say you're just as good and better than them, you got to go work. Right. It's not just you can't cool yourself through everything. You can't culture yourself through everything. Right. You got to go and actually meet them on their playing field and knock them down and do what you have to do. And that set me up while transferring might have, it kind of shook me as a young person because that was everything I knew. It set me up as an adult to go be able to compete and decide that I was going to be able to do whatever I wanted to do, regardless of whether I was in a comfortable environment or not. So yeah, college was a huge, you learn so much more, as you know, than just the books. And for me, I had literally life lessons that I'll never forget, like things that I've taught my children as examples of things to do and what not to do happened during my 4.5 years of college experience.
But you did it. You made it through, and that's what counts.
Absolutely.
No, that's so cool. I wanted to go to an HBCU, but, chose UW because it was in-state and it was the most affordable. But if I do grad school at some point, then that would be something I would definitely consider. And Brad, you could also still go. You can get a second master's.
I'll tell you this also, just to that point though. So my children, my sons, my oldest two, went to Sidwell. Well, all three of them went to Sidwell Friends, very elite private school in DC. My oldest son then went to UPenn, right? So he went to University of Pennsylvania, and but then for graduate school, he came to Howard, and he did 2 years at Howard. So he's told me like that's the full circle environment. Because yes, he actually went to Howard University Middle School on the campus. And then to go from Howard University Middle School, where you're embedded in this Black culture, to then go to Sidwell Friends, where it's a lot more diverse in terms of what it is. Then to go to UPenn, which is less diverse, if you know what I mean. But then to come full circle to Howard, I think if I had to paint the picture of an academic journey, there's his journey versus my journey. Like he got some of those lessons it took me to get to ODU to get. He got those in the 9th grade. Right. So it brought it back full circle for him to be able to come back and do some amazing things as a member of the Howard community as well. So, yeah, when you want to go back, there's absolutely the opportunity to go embed yourself because there's nothing like it. Like you can't really you can't really describe it. You can't watch enough movies. It's when you wake up every single day knowing I'm about to walk out here and see some beautiful, focused, exceptional Black people all day, whether I see them in a class or at the pool hall or in the lunch, it doesn't matter. It's the most amazing experience you can have to just be consistently embedded in that, waking up every single day. So.
Yeah, I can imagine how empowering that would be. So that's super cool. And yeah, just moving forward, I wanted to talk a little bit more about your work at Along Talk, and particularly just since 2020, I think we've seen a decrease in a commitment to racial and social justice from many of those allies that were so, eager to begin dismantling racism and systemic oppression, but have seemed to almost like suffer from this amnesia, as Angela Davis said, about actually being involved in these movements. And I think have forgotten just how much it takes in order to advance this type of work, that it's consistent. You have to be a lifelong learner. It's ongoing. You have to consistently be uncomfortable and also challenge people. So I was hoping you'd be able to speak a little bit to our question about holding those in power accountable. And McKinsey & Company devised a report in 2023 that provided an update on corporate commitments to racial justice since the tragic murder of George Floyd, and found that the pace of monetary commitments has slowed year over year, down 32% since 2021. Additionally, 60% of businesses in the Fortune 1000 have not made public statements of support for racial justice as of October 2022. From your perspective, leading anti-racism efforts across the country in various corporations, nonprofits, and higher education institutions, what would you like to emphasize to these companies that have failed to deliver on their social, racial, and economic justice commitments? Please let me know if you need me to repeat anything.
No, my first part is I was never expecting them to do this anyway. So that's my first answer. And here's the thing. That's not who we even talk to. See, the system is never going to change the system. So to believe that the system is going to change because the people who are running the system decide to change it, that's where you get incremental. We're going to give you one more thing today. We'll give you a couple more things 2 years from now. The people have to change this country. And so the people in power are not the companies who promise to do something. It's the 25 million people that came outside and walked in the streets who promised to do something. And what the problem is as Americans, humans, we just believe that by showing up once or twice, by saying I'm on the right side, that's supposed to now make everybody else believe us and make sure. And that's the missing message, is that there are still so many good people that want to see change. There's just no avenue for change. Like literally, if a kid graduated from high school and said, I want to be an activist and change America, there's no school to go to. There's some policy programs, but there's no one that's going to teach you step by step what's going to be hard, what's going to be what you got to do, none of that stuff. And so that's why things don't change, because people in charge, if you will, know that everything else will just balance back and level back out to normal. Because it's so when the people have to, we need an uprising. We don't need corporations to decide. We need every employee at the corporation to look at they should be reminding them. If I worked at one of these companies, I should be in their face every day. But the people don't feel like they have the license to do that. They don't want to lose their jobs. They don't know how to fight. They've never seen it work before, right? Especially, like, the thing about it is, my generation, we were made to be the most comfortable generation in America, especially Black people. Like our parents and our grandparents fought and marched and did all kinds of things to make it easier for us. And we have accepted that ease with a little chip on our shoulder, but not with any work ethic behind it. Like, we're not going to do it. Like, we're going to make it a little better. We're going to be a little prouder. We're going to say it. But we didn't really have a plan to make it there was no plan to carry what Dr. King and them did to the next generation. That's why there was the whole quiet part of the 80s and the 90s. Like, no one was doing anything. We just responding to stuff. But when they killed the civil rights movement, literally with bullets, when they killed them and put them in jail and destroyed the Black Panthers and did all those things, they understood that there were systems that were organizing the people. So once those systems were out, now the people are just spread out all over the place. And I'm going to tell you, when you talk about complacency from 2020, there are people that will tell you that because they haven't seen another Black man die at the hands of the police on TV, that doesn't happen anymore. That whatever happened in 2020, well, y'all fix that. Somebody asked me a couple weeks ago, there hasn't been another George Floyd since then. I'm like, well, one, you haven't been paying attention because we just had something with the lady with the pot. Like we just like it might not
Sonia
exactly,
Massey.
it's Sonia Massey. It might not be exactly, but see, the thing is, what they meant was we haven't seen anything so undeniable again. So and that's what you got to think. Emmett Till moved the needle because it was undeniable. The 4 little girls in the church got killed. It moved. There were things that happened all in between that didn't move the needle at all. But it had to be some bow moment. So George Floyd becomes the bow. I'm gonna do my Diallo bow, like all these big things. So if you really think about it, since George Floyd, we've had a couple little things, but there hasn't been a big moment. So some people think, well, the marching must have worked. Y'all fixed it, right? Because we don't understand what it takes. I use the analogy as this, and I'll have them all to come on to this. There were a lot of good people came outside in 2020, like millions of people that were great, their heart was in it. They wanted to, and they thought that by coming outside for days or for months, by wearing a shirt, by putting up a sticker, that they were doing enough to fix the problem, right? But that's because we don't understand the depth of the problem. You see, if I'm stuck in a 50-foot hole, right, and people try to save me with a 40-foot rope, I'm still stuck in the same hole. And the people who are dropping the 40-foot rope are now mad at me. The good people were trying to help me. Just grab it. It's right there. And I'm mad at them, like, just lower some more. Give me some more rope. Let's go. We're this close. So it actually upsets even more people because they think that, well, we did some stuff. There was so much pushback. And now it's inevitable that we have to live with this. No, we have to understand, one, the level of work, and we have to understand the work is not going to be a top-down solution. The work is going to have to be a bottom-up rising. That's why we started this conversation between 2 people, a white man and a black man. We now have over 25,000 people involved in the conversation 4 years later. The goal over the next 2 years is to multiply that to 2 million people. Those are the 2 million people that work at those jobs that stop talking about it. Some of them are executives in those jobs. So I need to empower you to walk back up in the board meeting and say, you know what? 5 years ago, we promised to do this, that, and the other. And no one's talked about it. So here I am now showing them. That's how we push the companies back up, not to demand them to do something, because we're not going to organize national boycotts. We don't have that type of organization in our culture these days. Right. So if we had that, we could have changed that automatically. We could have, but we don't have that right now. And when I say we, I'm talking about not just black people holding their money. I'm talking about if white people decided that every one of those companies that lied about their agreements stop supporting those companies would get right back on board immediately. But it's the people that have to push them, not complain about them not doing something. We, the people, have the power. It's the whole point of America. We just have to use it with our dollars and our votes. So I'm gonna leave it with that.
Yeah, I'll just say really quickly. You said something. A lot of times, programmings, initiatives like this are designed for Black people, Black and brown people, and there are millions and millions of white people who are in neutral. And that's why we call ourselves an anti-racism activation experience, because we want to activate people on the sideline. But it's when you look at the numbers in the summer of 2020, the first global protests on every continent, millions of white people activated. And then you saw the backlash. You know what? There's a lot of empathy. Let's implement these CRT. Let's make up this whole thing. Let's ban books. It was this whole backsliding, and so for me and for us and for our community, for our work, it's always activation, and it's not just within our community. We're asking white people, get off the sidelines and let's go. And so, like Kyle said, if you work at a company, if you're a CEO, if you're an executive, you're in a position, yes, I could be the Black person in the meeting saying, what about the George Floyd commitment? But how powerful is it if the white male C-suite exec steps up and says something? Yeah, the data, everything you share with the McKinsey report is crystal clear. But we, the people, have to push that needle, and that's how we're going to see change. And that's our plan. It's just we, the people.
Absolutely. What you said and what you guys both spoke to just reminded me about, how recently Microsoft laid off their DEI team because they said DEI was no longer business critical, although they still hold up their DEI values. And to me, it just shows how, right immediately after George Floyd, everyone was so performative. All these corporations jumped on it. They put out their DEI statements and said, oh, we're so committed to DEI and anti-racism and social justice. And then as time goes on and time fades out, they start to show their true colors, which really is profit. And if DEI isn't bringing them profit and they don't see the benefit, then they're just going to cut it. And I think it was so ironic that that happened right before the death of Sonia Massey, another unarmed Black person who was holding a pot of water and apologized before her life got taken, essentially. It feels like how many more people are going to have to die, or what is it going to take, for organizations and companies to actually stick with it and not just hop on it when it's a trend and it's, buzzy and they feel like it's good for business. And, oh, if we say Black Lives Matter, then some people might come shop at our stores. So what advice do you have for people who are kind of just getting frustrated with this, whole corporate, scheme essentially to use our trauma as a way to uplift themselves and their public image?
Well, I would. There's a what's. I wish I could bring Jay. I wish I could phone a friend and put my buddy Jason on the call. That, that's a tough one because again, I don't. I guess I've worked outside of the box so long. I just don't expect those people to do anything. So I really don't know. I almost feel like it's a waste of time. And I'm saying that meaning I know that there are people that care about this stuff, but I feel like it's a rabbit hole. It's kind of a waste of energy. Meaning I think it's a setup. I think it really is a setup for us to get our hopes up high on these companies doing these great things. And I'm sure some of them have. I'm sure they've done some things. But it's just not my route. Kamal works maybe a little bit more closely. Maybe you have a different perspective.
No, I think what it really takes is activating white leaders' empathy. Look at Ben and Jerry's. For some reason, Ben and Jerry's really, as a $1 billion company, they get it. Even JP Chase Morgan, if you look at their earnings report, their CEO said DEI is important. Now, they're one of the few banks on Wall Street that are the biggest. And he's like, we're doing this. But look at everyone else. DEI must die and all these things that people bought in, like these false narratives, right? But there are some people, Michael Bloomberg, 2 weeks ago, gave $600 million to 4 HBCUs. When you look at what he said, it's not that he just gave the money, it's what he said. It's on our social media at a Long Talk 2020. We had to share the clip of him talking about Black positions. Powerful. You just search it. Not only did Michael Bloomberg say, you know what, I'm going to show, I'm going to empower these historically Black medical schools because I know what's going on. And what he said was profound. But there's not a lot of people out there doing that. So, but to me, what we've seen the greatest change in action, especially in the corporate space, it takes someone who has, number one, this intentional miseducation. We talk about that in a long talk. That if you can intentionally miseducate people for generations, they feel like MLK, Rosa Parks, Barack Obama were good. There's no desire for change. Why can't the Black people just pull themselves up by the bootstraps? You see all these things that are going on, it keeps going. But what we found is that most people in this country have no clue the depth of the systemic nature. The history has been so intentional that there's generation after generation. You can get an Ivy League education and still don't have a clue or a small percent, especially in K through 12, with your foundation about how we got here. You feel like it's fixed. And so I'm just working hard in my life and I don't get it. But once people know, and Kyle says is when you know and you have the information and it's laid out to you, receipts, chronological, everything, you have to make a choice. You can't unsee it because it's in healthcare, it's in education, it's in banking, it's in criminal justice and crime and punishment. It's in all these pillars that's baked in the cake. Then you have to decide, are you going to sit here and just ride this thing along, or are you going to be a part of the change? And so for me, when you have executives who step up and lead and show and do, it's something happen in their heart and a switch flip, but it's a low percentage from what I see. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that term that you mentioned, intentional miseducation, I think that perfectly describes, why so many people have that lack of empathy simply because they just do not understand the history and, the context in which many groups, including, our community, have been economically disenfranchised. And I think, Kyle, you touched on that very well about how we should not put our faith into these corporations and institutions because, ultimately they were built on capitalism, which relied on the subjugation of certain groups in order to persist. And so for us to believe that's the solution is kind of, fooling ourselves, like you said. So, while we can continue to bring forward these issues to people that are in power, really the change does rest with us and we have the power. So I appreciate you saying that and also mentioning the importance of civic engagement and voting, because I know with, the election coming up, many people have been feeling discouraged up until now. We have Kamala, which I'm so happy to see. That's kind of given us a little bit more hope, but it's just important for us to continue to exercise those rights that we were stripped of for so long throughout history. So thank you for touching on that.
Thank you. And I cannot stress the importance of white people getting other white people, helping bring them into this and bringing their attention and waking them up. And that's our machine is designed to activate an anti-racism activation experience designed to wake up people, predominantly white people, and say, let's go. You have a place in this too. It's not just for you to cheer for the civil rights stuff and social justice. It affects all of us. Let's go. And so to voting to everything, but there is this sense of I can go to the lake house and I can just chill out and relax, or I can be in an all white environment and it's okay. No, it's not okay. We need you on this every single day. Are you the one who's going with us? Are you going to wake up and do this, rinse and repeat? Are you going to keep going? No, we're going to keep going until we find the people whose empathy is activated so that their action is consistent. And it's not just on you all doing this work in your spaces that you're in every day. It would be so amazing if we had an army of people doing the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. And, you touched on also people that sit on the sidelines and they would rather observe the change. And I think they could be the largest part of the problem, which, Martin Luther King mentioned in letters, in Birmingham jail about, white moderates and how they actually, perpetuate the system much more than, bigots and like blatant racists by just sitting by and saying, I'm okay with, the inequities and all this inequality that's going on because it doesn't affect me. And they're the ones that actually really hold a lot of power as well. So they need to be on the front lines with us because it's a collective effort.
Yeah, and no worries if you guys don't want to get into this, but I would love to actually ask your opinion on, just the upcoming election, because I know there's been a lot of, talk about, Kamala and, essentially how, it doesn't matter if there's a black person in office, someone who's an institutionalist essentially is going to uphold these institutions. And Kyle, I believe that you mentioned like, the system is not going to necessarily go out of its way to fix itself. So, I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on, just how we can work on fixing these issues when the system is in place. And also, should we view this as the slow and steady win the race? Like, should we view this as, there's someone coming in and, eventually we can take it one step at a time. And maybe next time there will be someone who is a little less institutionalist in office. But yeah, just would love to get your thoughts.
Well, so I would say I think I'm not believe when it comes to politics, I believe it's two wings of the same bird. I'm not pro this party or to be honest with you, I believe that we've had one party always in this country. If you look at it historically, we've always had one party that's been focused and working towards maintaining the status quo of white supremacy. And we've always had another party that just kind of compromises with them to make it a little bit less and make it more palatable for the rest of us. So the compromisers versus the colonizers, if you want to look at it that way, right? So, so for me, I don't put a lot of stock. Well, I want to say that this one's a little different. And what I mean by that is there are times when I've always believed the president is a figurehead. They're a figurehead of whatever the agenda, the people, and that are behind it. And I still believe that. I believe that that's. But I think this one's a little different. I think we saw in the first time this MAGA movement started running, and we saw how it tapped into the apathy of American voters to this desire for a change. And then we saw the real harm that was done by it, not for a lot of people. And we saw the the separation and the divisiveness that happened in this country. So whether, whether the streets got better, the schools got better, like the infrastructure, all that stuff kind of is the same to me, right? Both parties kind of do what they do with that. But I think the culture of America can't withstand another MAGA run. Let me back up. Actually, let me back up. Because I think regardless of who wins in the next election, this country's about to go through some things. Because we've reached a tipping point where there are enough people that are pushing back, and which I honestly believe that white supremacy is in a desperation mode. See, I believe Donald Trump messed it up for them because they had been humming along quietly for a long time. And I think he came in and took all the covers off, started yelling it out loud, and then good white people started saying, well, what's that? And I'm like, it's the same stuff that's been running. He just pulled the cover back. So I think he actually put it on blast, which now makes them have to fight for their life. Like, I think as much as white supremacists love Donald Trump, I think they hate him in the same breath because he took the mask off, the blinders off. He literally took the hood off and said, we don't have to wear these hoods anymore. Right. And so you have a very dangerous normalization of hatred and ignorance and a commitment to hatred and ignorance that people double down on. They want you to call somebody a name, and then I should be able to have the right to say that name. Like, those are things that we were trying to get away from in this culture. And while we know it didn't necessarily go away, it has started to kind of bubble down a little bit, right? This political correctness. Politics now is about being the most incorrect. Right. And it now has spread to where they've seen the power of it, where even the Democrats have to do things that they wouldn't normally do. But it's like the vibe now is this. And so their performances have become even a little crazier to me in terms of what they do to kind of keep our attention. So there's no political answer for this to be like, well, we have to dismantle the remnants of white supremacy in this country. And those exist on both sides of the aisle. They work hand in hand together, whether it's the pandering of the Democrats, whether it's the outright blatant racism of the Republicans. Those are all remnants of this, right? So we have to get to a place where if we want to truly have a meritocracy, all these other things, we have to eliminate these things. And that's what's on the ballot. That's what's on the line. And I'm saying whoever wins, the other side is going to have a tremendous backlash for the next couple. You think inauguration January 6th was rough then? Either way, it's going to be crazy now. Like, whoever wins this next hand, both sides believe that if the other side wins this time, this country's going to hell and we're never going to, and that's the desperation that people feel. So you're going to have some crazy things that happen. So I just think people need to really, and I'll say this last part, for me, I'm all here for the show with the popcorn. I've been waiting for the damn curtain to get peeled back in the veil to be shown in this country for as long as I can remember. I'm sure my spirit has been doing that before I got here. Because it's time for us to really honestly look at who we are and decide who we want to be. Like, if America truly decides that they want to be MAGA, then it sends a very clear, in 2024, then it does send a very clear message to people like me and the people that, like us, to figure out what it is that we want in this country, or whether we want to be in this country, to be quite honest. Like, it's about to really get turned upside down, because if Kamala wins and the Democrats wins, they're going to blow up some buildings. Like, it's going to be some buildings blown up in this country. It's going to be some real terroristic activity. If MAGA wins, it's going to be an opening to a normalcy of just, we did it again. You vote. You can't argue if America votes for Donald Trump again, you can't argue that we don't want that we don't want it. And then we just have to decide what we want to be a part of. So I think regardless, I'm just literally sitting back with my popcorn, because either way, it's still just going to stir up the same stuff we're dealing with anyway. And if we're being 100% honest, that's how we were able to push, to get into the forefront of this anyway, because we do have something that makes it make a little more sense. And I guarantee you come January. Also, I just found out that Inauguration Day is also MLK Day this year. Oh my God. It's a lot.
Is it really? I didn't realize that. Wow. That's going to be
none of that stuff is accidental. None of that stuff is accidental. I'm telling y'all, buckle your seatbelts up, but be ready, because whatever happens, there's going to be a path one way or the other that people have to either, we're going to have to fight to maintain or fight to disrupt. So that's my political plan without being, but that's where I am. I'm as independent as they come. I'm registered independent. I believe in people, not parties. So I trust what people say if that's what they're going to do. So That's my political bent on that. Kamal doesn't like touching that part at all.
And that's okay, Kamal. Do you want to add anything?
I'm good.
Kyle put it perfectly, I feel like. And yeah, I think regardless, like you said, we're going to see something that will not, will be in the record books, basically, and hopefully it will be something that allows us to continue to move forward the movements that we're in right now and not continue to reverse them. But yeah, I think, I believe in people as well. And, that again, that we are able to make the change. So thank you for speaking to that, Kyle. And moving forward, just kind of to wrap this up, I know that we are a little bit over time, so thank you so much. But you've kind of spoken to this already, just with your vision with the long talk and how you've continued to just remain consistent and, that you have a mission that you're carrying out. And what are you most looking forward to as you continue to expand your work with the long talk? Or any big goals? I know you said you're planning to multiply the people that you reach and, the anti-racists that you activate and also bringing in like the white allies. But yeah, are there any other like major goals?
I think the biggest goal for us, what we've been able to do for the last 4 years, like I said, we have an incredible conversation. It inspires people. It activates people. And we realized, and we thought that people would just get inspired and know what to do, right? And we realized that because it's never been done before, no one's ever showed you, we have a lot of people around the country that are excited and are ready, but don't know what to do. So what we realized, and we knew this in the beginning, but we just didn't know exactly how important it was. We've been out in front of this, trying to get the name out, get the work out, get new people on board. But what we're so excited about is that we're launching our platform, our online community platform. And I know that may sound like, well, you're just launching a website. No, think of Facebook, but for anti-racist, with no ads, no Zuckerberg or no other agenda, other than a social media platform where people can come together of like mind and meet up and discuss and share resources and activate and do things. So we are launching what we call our alt universe, our long talk universe, where we already kind of send people in there to start doing the work, but the robustness of it is what we're building out. So literally on tomorrow, we are sending an email to the 12,000 people that are already registered in our space that have just used it to get their information, to now open up the door to be connected. And I believe that's the missing ingredient, because I think there are way more people than I thought that are still active and want to do something. Like, we meet people, things are great. We go on to the next group, things are great. And you kind of know some people are still there. They reach out, they do stuff. But to understand the masses of people, I want to do one thing. Can I sign a petition? Can I, like, even if it's just a little bit, we got to keep connecting the dots. So we have been a little bit behind schedule on that part. We've been out in front getting people engaged. We've been a little bit behind in terms of keep getting them mobilized and organized and activated and empowered. So I'm most excited over the next 12 months of opening up our online community to where it literally is going to be a daily hub for people to connect. That instead of going to talk about stuff on Twitter or on Instagram, I want you to be posting your wins in the Long Talk universe, connecting with people, connecting us with other people, because it's an active learning space. So who do you know? What can you do? Here are some resources, share it. So for me, that's what I'm most excited about, because that is what's going to totally make the change. That's where we're going to have, 7th grade students that are walking into their school, telling their principals, I want us to learn the protocols. We can speak and challenge ignorance. Can you do a training on? Like, that's the kind of stuff that happens in our community, but a lot of people don't know that's happening. So we got to organize it. We got to amplify those voices and really show people just a little bit at a time, one step at a time, how they can move and impact their spaces. So there's a lot of stuff on the business horizon, a lot of people that I'm going to meet. I'm good with meeting all the next folks. I want to make sure that the folks that have been here, that have showed up for the last 4 years, have now a 12-month run into doing things they never thought they could do before. And that's what we're mobilizing people to do. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah, that's same with me. I mean, just watching this mission continue to grow exponentially, like Kyle mentioned, they'll eventually reach 2 million people that are activated, that are doing stuff in their spaces. If I'm a retired librarian, if I'm the head of plastic surgery at X, Y, and Z, wherever. I mean, Kyle doesn't even know this. We were at a school, and there's an IT we're anti-racism group. And he's like, think about this. We touch everyone's computers, everyone's technology. Like, how brilliant is it for the IT people on this campus with thousands of people to have this organization? What kind of good can we do? And so we are looking to work with, we call ourselves a hodgepodge of do-gooders. It doesn't matter where you are, where you come from, what background, and it's everyone versus racism, everyone versus, it's all the isms. We're attacking white supremacy. And so we're building this hodgepodge of do-gooders who said enough is enough. We're not dealing with anything. We're not accepting it, and we are going to push back against it, the normalization of the status quo. It's a war on ignorance. So that's what we're excited about.
That is so exciting. I cannot wait to see that launch. And it could be like the next LinkedIn for anti-racist, honestly, just with the momentum that you've had. So I see it continuing to grow. People are getting over Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and everyone can migrate to what you all have. So I'm excited for people to hear that.
Wow. Thank you. We received it. Thank you all, definitely.
And I'll actually send you a link to join that. I mean, I don't know how much.
Yes.
I'll give you the preview. It's coming out tomorrow. Matter of fact, while y'all are talking, I'll drop a link in here. You can grab it before we even get off here today. So
sounds good. Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. This has been so inspiring. And so we're finally to our last question. Time flew by so quick. While our community, we have a lot of shared experiences, we are not a monolith. Our individual circumstances and just our lived experience make us who we are. And so one thing we ask all of our guests is, what does Blackness mean to you?
You want that first, Kamal? Or
you got it, bro, because I know you're going to let this
Blackness mean.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, especially when it comes out to when people when you question is Kamala Harris Black, right? I think one of the things that's interesting in this conversation right now, that you're right, that it's not monolithic, but it is a shared experience, right? In the sense that a lot of people say, well, are people of Caribbean descent Black, and are they, it's ADOS, or all these different levels of Blackness. Am I a true American descendant of slavery, or am I a Caribbean implant, all this? And it's just this division that not everybody, but some people in the Black community want to separate us one way. Jamaicans are not the same as, all this kind of stuff. I always look at it with the eye test. When they showed up at the bathroom and the sign said colored only and white only, where'd you have to go? So I don't care if you're Jamaican, I don't care if you're Haitian, I don't care if you're from Kentucky and Black, I don't care if you're from Harlem and Black. When you showed up with your face the way it looked, you had to turn left and go to the colored only. Nobody wanted to hear that your great grandmother was from Jamaica versus, nobody. It didn't matter. And so I think as we start to look at Blackness has been defined by how it's treated, how it's been separated, how it's been different, right? So just like we understand the establishment of what whiteness was, which brought together all the white immigrants together that actually didn't get along at first, but then the concept of whiteness brought all them together from Italy, Greece, Poland, whatever, they were just white people. Blackness to me is the same thing in terms of when I look at this person or when I look at this culture, does it represent something that falls different from the standard of white supremacy with a deep melanated complexion? Right. And so, again, whether that's continental Africa, whether that's South American, whether that's Harlem, New York, or Chicago. Right. So embedded in all that, though, is our response to having to walk around with that stamp. Right. Because, again, I don't know, Brad, exactly your background or Tiana, but I know that people are going to look at you the same way they look at me and my children. And so we share that same sense of Blackness that, whether I carry it from, like you said, Tiana, growing up in a white household where it wasn't poured into like it is in my house or my kids. But when you walk through the door, it doesn't matter. The monolith is the world sees you as a Black person or as a non-white person. So to me, it's about, for me, Blackness is about us being able to use all of those experiences to empower and to feel pride and all that good stuff. But to understand all of our other experiences, because the more we understand the totality of Blackness as Black people, then that adds to us. It doesn't separate or divides us. Like the Haitian struggle is my struggle, right? Because I understand that. The indigenous struggle is my struggle, right? Because and here's the thing, white people need to do the same thing. They need to be able to embrace that. So for me, as I walked, I can't imagine, I've never lived a day without my knowledge of self. I've never lived it. I can't remember a day. I'm a child of hip hop. I was 8 years old. I literally studied KRS-One's lyrics when I was in the element. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I did. So this understanding of what Blackness meant is about our history. It's about the things we have achieved through resilience. And I think it's just something that's the beauty. I'll end with this, because I will say this: there's a unique experience of Blackness unlike anywhere in the world, and that's the American Black person. We're the only, from my study of history, we're the only nation, and I'm going to say that as a nation of people in this country, that have created themselves from scratch. And that doesn't discount our connections, but our experience as Black people in America is totally different than any other experience of any other Black people in the world. But any other people, we were separated and we had to recreate ourselves. And in 250 years, not only have we created our culture, it is the predominant culture of the world. Hip hop is the most predominant culture phenomenon in the history of the world. It's the greatest economic and cultural export in American history. Is around. You can pull up stuff around the world and you see kids that are wearing Ice Cube t-shirts in South America. Because its Blackness has traveled. And because we are diaspora, that's why it connected on every continent. That's why Black Lives Matter was set on every continent, because they understood that it is a connection. There is a collection and there is a diaspora. So for me, Blackness is, if you just look at it scientifically, it's the combination of everything, of all the colors. Whiteness is the void of all color. So every single thing that makes up America, makes up the world, makes up the globe, contributes to this culture of Blackness that we have. And some people embrace it and some people fight against it. For those that embrace it, it gives us a whole nother level to step on. And for those that hate it and fight it, it gives them an enemy globally to demonize and point out to. So for me, if I had to kind of bring this on to it, it is a unifying experience. It is a unifying understanding of who we are, what we've been through collectively, and where we need to go moving forward. So,
and Kyle said a lot. Just our Blackness is beautiful. That's it. I mean, yeah. I mean, I can go on and on, but Kyle did a great job. I'm Black and I'm proud. I love Blackness. I love Black people with Black joy. I love Black resilience. And you're right, we're not a monolith. But it's just beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's amazing. I can't even really follow up what both you said. Kyle, specifically, you touched on so much, but particularly about like identity politics and how I think we've gotten into these conversations that have like divided the Black community just most recently when it comes to, like the perceptions of what we look like to others within our own community. I know, like, being lighter, that's something, colorism's real, texturism's real, and so all of that is, kind of functioned, and it's a product of white supremacy because Blackness was created in contrast to whiteness. And so I think that's something that it's infiltrated our community, and we need to understand that, while we are not monolithic and we all have our individual relationship to our Blackness, and we've all come from different parts of Africa, and that we've ended up in different, places because of our history, that we all have that shared experience, and I love that you talked about African-American experience, because it is something that, others within the Black community, and I guess Black communities, we should say plural, because we all have our own sub-communities and subcultures within it, that we have our own experience, and we've had to really create our own culture, like you said, here, and that we've started from behind, the start line. So yeah, I just really love that you touched on that, and it's very complex, but I think you did a great job of really summing it up.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that we've asked you pretty much everything, but if there's anything else that you'd like to add, please feel free.
No, I just want to say thank you. I mean, you two, it's refreshing for us to watch y'all lead, like the passing the baton. Y'all organize this podcast, but bigger than that, seeing you in action on campus at UW and watching these. You have professors from all these prestigious places, and you're commanding like your Black excellence was on full display when I was there a few months ago, and just watching you put your passion into, like you said, that's not even your full-time job there. but you brought together some of the greatest minds that people want change. And it just shows that for me, that was beautiful. So I don't have anything else to say about us. I'm just want to give you your flowers while we're on here. Brad, we're meeting you, but I can, through this conversation and reading the newsletters, the articles you sent about you all's journey, when I'm out there, I think we're coming back out there in a few weeks. I have to sit down and have coffee with you or grab some dinner with you, just give you a hug and say what's up. Like, it just, I'm inspired. I guess that for me, and that's what I hope. Like, when I think about my daughters and think about Kyle's sons and all, like, this is what we want to see. So yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you
so much. Yeah, we'd love to get together too. Like, that's partly also why we created this space was, to be in community with each other and, continue to amplify the work that everyone's doing. So please let us know if you're out here. We'll definitely get it on the calendar. I know that you both are so busy, but we'd love it.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Make sure you guys
we'll share your stuff on our social media too. I don't know if you'll push that out on your podcast or on you guys, socials, but we want to make sure we share and amplify your work as well. And we're on a Long Talk 2020. That's our handles, but we'll repost just let us know how we can amplify and support your work. Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I was gonna say I put the link in the chat for you to grab. It's an invitation to join our next community conversation, but it puts you inside if you can't make those days or times, you've been through it, but it'll put you in the space. It'll show you our new 21-day activation cycle. We actually have built out literally 21 days of 10-minute activities that will get people engaged and get people used to it. Feel free to share that link with anybody, cousins, parents, neighbors, other students. Like, those are our community calls where, as much as we do work with universities and corporations, we still make sure every single month we have a free platform, a free opportunity for anyone in the world to join us. So that'll point you to it. And then once you also log in, you'll get the emails for as we start to expand and blow up. So you'll stay in the mix with that stuff right there.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll definitely be taking a look at it, and we'll keep you posted about everything that we share out with this episode. It will be airing in November. So you will be our finale episode. You are our first two guests that have been outside of Seattle. So this is a really special one, and we're excited for it to reach other networks where you're both at in DC and Atlanta. And, please continue to share any other Black professionals that you have within your networks that you would like us to talk to, because we just want to continue to, bring the stories to everyone. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you guys. Keep doing the work. Yeah. We'll see you on the front lines over and over for sure.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Have
a good rest of your Sunday.
Yes. Take care.
Take care.
Right. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
We are so grateful for your support, and thank you for listening to Identity Unboxed.
Authenticity is your guide to cast an impact on the world that you will be proud of. Signing off with pride, Tiana
and Brad.
Thank you so much.